Hello, this is Donna Tushoff, or Donna Tea Crafting, and today we're going to be making a card with Pixi Dust Designs. We're going to be using the Elegant Lattice cover plate die, the Ivy Leaves die, and the Mini Flowers die set. We're going to start. I cut a Elegant Lattice cover plate die out of black cardstock. I put that on top of another piece of black cardstock, and then I sprayed this with some Distress Spritz in Hickory Smoke. So you can see I had put that on there, and then I went and taped it down, and I sprayed it and let it dry. Now I'm going to take the die cut that I had done, and I'm going to put that on top of black paper. So now I have to decide which do I want to use as my background. I have two backgrounds now with that one spraying, and I just wasn't sure if I wanted to use the ones that had the die cut or the ones that had the impression with the die cut was on top of it. I ended up going with the die cut glued on top of the plain black. I thought that was the better one for this card. And then I have this other background that I can use for another card later on. Now my leaves, these are the Ivy leaves, and they were die cut from some black paper that I also sprayed with Distress Spritz in peeled paint. So that's peeled paint Distress Spritz, and then let that dry, and then I die cut these ivy leaves from that. So you have some really cool looking green ivy leaves from that kind of sparkly Distress Spritz. I put the major pieces of ivy leaves, the big pieces, I put those in two different corners. I thought that would be really cool. And then that still let the lattice show through in the middle. I also cut some extra pieces from the ivy leaves so that I could fill in where I thought was appropriate once these bigger leaves were put down. There are a lot of little pieces to glue, so just make sure you glue it down, get enough glue on there and all the little pieces that it will stay in place. If you want to leave a few of them popped up so they kind of raise up, you could do that as well, but I wanted mine to be put down and in place because I'm going to be adding flowers on top of this. So once we have our ivy leaves in place in each corner, then we are going to see if we want to add the extra leaves in that as well. In the end, I think you could do either way. It depends on how full you want the leaves and the backgrounds of your flowers to be. You just have to decide how many leaves you want sticking through with the flowers that you're going to be putting on. And there's all kinds of layouts you can do. I decided just to have, these two corners filled with the ivy leaves. You could add more. You could add some into all four corners if you wanted to do that. That would work as well. You could add lots of little pieces. You could add pieces around the sentiment in the middle. You could add individual pieces underneath the flowers as you're adding the flowers on. So there's all kinds of design ideas you can do with these leaf set. And honestly, this ivy leaf set is really, really cool because there is so many possibilities to use this for. I know I'm always looking for some good leaves. If I have some die cut flowers, some good sets of leaves that I can put behind them. And this is one that could definitely be a go-to for die cut flowers in the future. Now, the flowers that I'm using is the mini flower set, and we'll be putting those on in just a few minutes. And there's different kinds of flowers, so you just have to decide what kind of flowers you want to use as this. They do have a good proportion for these types of leaves. I think that was a really smart idea that these leaves and those flowers definitely are proportionate and work well together. So those two die sets definitely work well together. Now, my vines at the end of my leaves, they come pretty close to each other, don't quite touch each other, and that's fine. Like I said, I could add in some more and make, some more leaf patterns coming off those vines, or I could just leave it as it is. And you saw when I moved that around, you got a little bit of that shimmer that comes off that Distress Spritz, excuse me. Now, my flowers, I put these together. There's all kinds of different flowers in that die set. And I cut out one of each type and put them together to kind of give an idea. Um, I did do some shading on each one so that you have some shading in the middle or on the tips. And then I added the middles are a black cardstock sprayed with some solar spray in overheated. So kind of an orangish color on top of black, which gives it a really neat effect as well. In the end, I decided to go with two of the different flowers for this card. And it was just a matter of preference of which ones I liked. And I just decided to outline kind of the whole card basically in these flowers, alternating the flowers as I went around the card. And I did take the petals as I put them together and I kind of curved the petals so that, just kind of rolling them a little bit so that they have a little bit of curve to them. I think that's a really cool look. They would get flattened if I was mailing this card, but if I'm hand delivering this card, it does give it a really cool and full effect for the flowers rather than them just being completely flat. So I laid out the flowers before I started putting them down, deciding what I wanted to do, deciding how I wanted each flower to look, how many flowers I wanted on here. Like I said, I just in the end decided just to kind of lay them out so that the whole outline of the card had flowers. It does cover up some of my leaves, but I think it looks really cool to have that many flowers outside the card. And then I found a big foiled sentiment, happy birthday sentiment in my stash that I thought would be really cool in the middle there. With it being foiled, that kind of picks up with the shininess that you get from the Distress Spritz and the Solar Spray. And that yellow flowers just really pop off of the black and the dark green. I decided not to add any gems to this. I decided that with the foil and the Distress Spritz, that was enough sparkle. Plus, there's a lot going on with this many flowers along this card. As you can see, I'm just laying them out. I decided to put the one at the tip of that ivy leaf and down in the center and glue those down first and then do the one in between them so that I make sure that I kind of get them lined up and centered between all that. Because you don't want to have them kind of off kilter. So I went around and did the tips first and the center up in the corner and then did the middle parts after that. These I just put a little dot of glue on the center of these flowers because like I said they are curved. Each of the petals are curved a little bit, gives them a little bit of dimension, so I didn't want to glue all the petals down because that would then flatten them down, and I did not want my flowers to be flattened. I went ahead and had my leaves flattened so the flowers would fit on them nicely, but I did not want to flatten up all the petals on these flowers. For the shading that I did, I used mostly yellow cardstock on these and then did some just marker shading in the middle. On a couple of them, I did use some white cardstock, add some yellow and lighter yellow and then some darker yellow on them as well. So just varied it a little bit so they'd have a little bit of different coloring between the different flowers. The sentiment goes straight in the center. It could be popped up with foam tape or it can be glued down. Either way works, I think. I did let it go a little bit under a couple of the flowers so that, the flowers kind of covered up a little bit of it, but that's okay. I think that looks really cool anyway. Like I said, you could have taken some extra leaves and kind of had them popping out from the sentiment as well. I think that would be really cool. Once the sentiment is on, you have a completed card. Please make sure you subscribe to the Pixi Dust YouTube channel. and please check out the wonderful products that they have on their website. With that, I wish you a happy day and happy crafting.